Hey guys, before I get into the video today, I just want to take a moment to draw your attention to an NA amateur league for Overwatch that I just found out about a couple of days ago, called the Horizon League. It's been set up in a similar format to the Overwatch League, with each of the 10 teams being made up of Diamond and below players, drafted from their signups, creating their own branding and communities. They've been having some great growth lately, but still looking for more people to get involved, whether actively or just to support the amateur scene. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link to their Discord below in the description and comments section of this video, where you can find out more, but it's something alongside other amateur leagues that personally I'll be looking to closely follow in the ever-developing competitive Overwatch scene. Returning to the topic at hand, throughout this Overwatch League season, when I've come to make my weekly power rankings videos, there's been one team specifically that's constantly given me headaches due to their inconsistent performances over the past couple of stages, with them picking up some great wins against strong opponents one week, before then losing embarrassingly to weaker opponents the next week. So today, I want to discuss the Atlanta Reign and their rollercoaster season so far of this mid-season break. Looking at where they currently stand, the Reign have actually one of the better overall records among the teams clustered together in the congested middle of the pack, with 7 wins, 7 losses, and a decent map differential of +3. That currently has them sitting in 10th position. But to say that the route they've taken to get to this position has been comfortable would be a massive understatement. Atlanta was one of the hardest rosters to judge heading into the beginning of this season, not only because of them being an expansion side, but also the relative mix of players that they had assembled from across the world on their roster, with their notable pickups being the Korean tank duo of Pokpo and Dako from Element Mystic, as well as a huge and surprising signing of Dafran. Dafran joining the side ballooned their popularity and support that was only really matched by Hangzhou and their pink colour scheme heading into the start of Season 2, but also with that came very ambitious expectations and perceptions from their fanbase like Dallas the year before. The first week of Stage 1 saw the Reign steamroll Florida before narrowly falling short in an intense series against Philadelphia, but this already highlighted the potential the team had and painted the side in quite a positive strength, which was then further enhanced by 2 more wins in the following week against Toronto and Paris. 2 teams that at the time were also being considered very highly after impressive starts to the league, with the side being spearheaded by the impact of their tank duo and Dogman's high number of kills on Zen. Yet by the time week 4 rolled around, this early high in momentum quickly collapsed after a very disappointing 4-0 defeat to the Gladiators, which at the start of the season wouldn't have seemed so bad, but given their great run of form, being buoyed on by their fans, contrasting LA's mid-stage collapse, this result really seemed to be a reality check for the side. Worse for Atlanta was their shock 3-2 defeat to Chengdu in their following match, with the team struggling to adapt to the Hunters' unorthodox team compositions, and what potentially was a lack of preparation against a weaker opponent. These back-to-back losses also mounted the pressure onto the team, with a stage playoff spot that had looked firmly under their control, now under threat, and more importantly, it seemed like their strategy for their early successes was slowly starting to get picked apart, with it apparent that Dafran was not as efficient with his Zarya bubbles and gravitons compared to others, and it would be by focusing him and the range shield Pokpo that they could be susceptible to falling apart. Their last match of Stage 1 pitted them against the Houston Outlaws, and the team was able to prevent a possible disaster by securing a victory with a 3-1 scoreline, which in turn guaranteed their stage playoff place, where again they were bested by the Fusion, but this time in a slightly less competitive affair. Still, a 4-3 record at the end of Stage 1, with a very impressive +6 map differential, was widely respected as we headed into Stage 2, with many assuming they had sorted out their issues at the end of the stage, with their level of play seemingly plateauing out. But this small break between stages brought with it a lot of change for what looked like a team heading in the right direction, with Dafran retiring, linked to the acquisition of Babybay from the Shock, and the quiet beginnings of rumblings surrounding Dako's behaviour that was spotlighted with the team bringing in FRD on the eve of the opening stage series. But as this match began against the Uprising, all seemed to be going well, with Babybay finding his feet early on, but interestingly, it was FRD that was starting ahead of Dako at off-tan. Yet despite these changes, they went into halftime 2-0 up, and everyone looked to be settling in nicely. But from this point on, for the next 2 weeks, the team went into a very dangerous nosedive that was kickstarted by another infamous Boston reverse sweep, with Atlanta playing awfully, with poor team coordination and ultimate usage. They followed this up with an even more uninspiring 4-0 crushing defeat to London, with the team just not looking to be on the same page as one another, nor putting in similar levels of performance as we saw the stage before. Dako's benching started to be talked about more prominently, with FRD remaining in the lineup ahead of him into the second week, which would end up being the lowest point in the season so far for the team. Their first match of Stage 2, Week 2, saw them play the winless LA Valiant, who themselves were just starting to string together some decent displays. but defeat here would mark a major low for the Reign in highlighting their collapse from playoff contenders in Stage 1 to being at the bottom of the barrel in Stage 2. The series ebbed back and forth in a scrappy affair, and Atlanta had some moments where they came close to gaining the advantage. But ultimately, it was the team's forms that determined the outcome, giving the Valiant the 3-2 victory, and handing the Reign their third loss in a row, which they followed up by finally getting a win, but in a dreadful display against the Justice, emphasising the fall that they'd had. From here, the team simply looked to be in a crisis. Whilst not FRD's fault, as he'd actually been one of the few decent performers, the team had seemingly lost all cohesion and coordination that was now translating itself into the quality of performance they were putting on display, and the rest of the stage signalled disaster, with 2 series against New York still to come. The first of which arrived at the start of Stage 2 Week 3, and nearly everyone had the Excelsior pegged to pick up a 4-0, or at worst a 3-1 victory, and continue the chaos and turmoil for the Reign, in what was currently a torrid stage. But as the series began, the first news of interest was the return of Dako to the side, but this was only the start of many surprises to follow. Unbelievably, Atlanta came out with almost perfect coordination, executing a perfect strategy that saw Dako and Pokpo put relentless pressure on Mano on the front lines, with Dogman looking to catch Jonak with Zen Orb volleys. This strategy clearly caught the Excelsior off guard, as their attacks crumbled behind Mano succumbing to this pressure, and Jonak being forced to play a more macro-focused style that saw him waste Transcendence to save his Rhine, that was then punished by Baby Ray's Graviton surges. New York just couldn't seem to find a response. Before we knew it, the Reign has somehow secured the victory, taking 3 maps and handing the Excelsior their first regular season loss. The return of Dako just seemed to revitalise the entire side, whose return to proper coordination also resulted in a higher level of play overall. But of course, in keeping with their rollercoaster ride, they then immediately stumbled against the underperforming Guangzhou Chard, ending up the shock 3-1 losers to round out a bizarre and unexplainable third week. After a week off, they returned in week 5 for a rematch against New York, and despite their prior upset, expectations were that this time round, a strategy that caught Excelsior off guard once would not do so again, given their otherwise terrible displays to the rest of this stage. Yet 2 hours later, it felt as if fans had been transported back in time, with the second meeting almost being a carbon copy of their first. It was as if they knew that playing in this way was New York's unfixable Achilles heel, with the exact same strategy being put on display, and Jonak particularly had a terrible time efficiently using his Transcendence, as Atlanta did it again, this time picking up the 3-2 victory to end the stage with 2 series wins against the New York Excelsior. This left them with 3-4 record for the stage, with a -3 map differential, which on its own seems okay. When put alongside each result, brings up far more questions than answers. There were clearly a lot of issues left for the team still to sort out, with no justification for picking up 2 wins against New York and still not managing to qualify for the Stage 2 playoffs. Clearly their best roster was assembled, with Dako being able to synergise alongside Pokpo on the front line. And whilst Kodak hasn't done anything wrong, it's clear that Dogman is the star that they should be running most of the time, alongside Massa, who quietly has been one of the few consistent talents throughout, in a very strong main support bracket of the league. Halfway through the season, I think it's very fair to say that it's been a topsy-turvy rollercoaster ride for Atlanta. They've seen great highs as well as deep lows, but if they are to mount a serious challenge for playoff positioning at the end of the season, what they'll need to focus on especially is finding a level of consistency in their play against varying strengths of opponents. Otherwise they risk falling short and wasting the potential of their talent. With an incredibly tough Stage 3 before the homestand weekend, these issues will need to be addressed urgently for the team to stay in the hunt. And with that, we've reached the end of my Atlanta Reign mid-season breakdown. I'd like to thank you for watching. I know others have been making their own positional tier lists, but if you want me to make my own, please let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, if you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on this continuing Overwatch League coverage and content.